Hi there, and welcome to another Hero Arts tutorial. I'm Jeanette Cosson, and I thank you for joining me. Today I'm sharing how I use the Hero Arts liquid watercolors with the flowering nasturtium stamp and Old World Courtyard fancy dye on Bristol paper. Yep, Bristol paper. I'm watercoloring on Bristol paper today. I'm sure you've probably heard people shy away from using Bristol paper with water mediums, but I love it, and I use Bristol paper in my craft room more than any other paper. Let me show you how I've done that. First, I'm going to swipe anti-static power across the Bristol paper. Then I'm inking up with a sticky ink Versamark so that my embossing powder will have something to stick to. I'm stamping 2 times so that I have a spare to try techniques on, or to give to my little people who enjoy crafting along with me. I'm using just a 1/4 sheet of 9x12 Strathmore Smooth Bristol paper. I also regularly use Koh-i-Noor brand. Honestly, I'd like to be able to purchase Bristol paper by the ream. That is how much I use it. Using good old-fashioned red rubber stamps mounted on wood blocks is still one of my favorite ways to stamp. The crisp, detailed images are second to none. I'm using the Hero Arts white detail embossing powder to completely cover each image I have stamped. After generously coating, I tap the spoon onto the paper to release any loose powder, and again, over the trash can, I firmly flick the back of the paper to get any of the loose stragglers. Then I heat emboss. I use the Wagner heat tool that Hero Arts carries. It gets nice and hot and has a tapered nozzle that concentrates the heated air exactly where I need it. So liquid watercolors, these are fun, right? I am really enjoying getting to know them. The colors are bright, transparent, and super easy to use and mix. In the past, I have even mixed them with the Hero Arts iridescent shimmer spray to create sparkly watercolors. I did not do that today, but you sure could if you wanted to. To date, there are 10 colors. By mixing and matching these colors, you can create any color that can be dreamt up. And because they are delivered with a dropper, you can find that perfect ratio and achieve that same color over and over again. Or you can mix as you go with a brush. I'm using this 10-well tray that I have had forever. I'm not even sure where it's from. I have seen them around though, and they're very inexpensive. After shaking each bottle, and I didn't need too much, the pigment stays very well suspended in these watercolors. I've added a few drops of each color in rainbow order, of course. I won't use all of these colors today, but that's okay. They won't go to waste. I just let them dry in the palette and add a drop or 2 of water to rehydrate. Just be cautious when adding water to the dried color. If you add more liquid than was originally there, you'll dilute the color a tad. You can certainly use it that way, and you may even prefer it. Or you can add a few more drops of color to help, or let some water evaporate. All's well any way you choose. These watercolors are very forgiving. Okay, so I know this is difficult to see. I've zoomed in a bit to help, but working on white is just tough to see. I've also sped it up so that you can see the progression, but not have to sit here for the entire time it actually took me to complete this painting. I'm starting with mulled wine, a deep purple shade, and adding that to the petal bases to the areas that might be shaded, like where one petal is tucked behind another. Today I worked through all of the petals with mulled wine first before moving on to my next color. Sometimes I paint all the colors on each petal before moving to the next, sometimes I don't. You, of course, can do it however you want. There are no rules in crafting. The next color I'm adding is strawberry. It is a pinky toned red. I'm adding that to the same areas I did as the mulled wine, but extending the color just a tad further. No need to rush through. This technique on Bristol paper doesn't require it. Bristol paper has a coating which allows the pigment to stay on top of the paper. When the pigment is re-wet, either with water or another color, it loosens and begins to move freely. I will note that Bristol paper cannot be scrubbed like a good quality watercolor paper can. So if you are one that likes to do that, you might choose to stamp on a smoother watercolor paper like Canson Montval over Bristol paper. Bristol paper is very good, but you do have to be gentle with it. One of the perks of Bristol paper is how crisp stamped images are. I tend to pull away from watercolor paper because I can't achieve the same crispness that I can with Bristol. Now I'm adding dandelion yellow to the outer edges of the petals. I know, it looks like a hot mess. Watercolor's kind of like that for me. It looks like a hot mess until all of a sudden it doesn't. Once all of the colors in place, dampen the brush with clean, clear water and blend the colors together a bit, still preserving the highlight of each petal. If you find the highlight disappearing, rinse the brush, blot it on a paper towel, and then take it to the highlight area to lift the color. A thirsty brush will pick up color, bringing that highlight back. As you blend, you will notice the petals taking shape. By golly, it does look like a flower. I'm going for a loose watercolor feel, but if you like a more blended look, you can certainly achieve that too. Next, I'm mixing a touch of moss and indigo to create a dark teal color. I tend to like a little bit of blue hues in my leaves. I've used this color in the same way I did the darkest shade of the petals, along the base of the leaves or the areas that might be shadowed. Then just moss alone to build that color out into the leaf a little further. Then clean, clear water on the outer edge and blend it up to the color. The color will then spill into the highlight areas and create interest. I like to go back in and add a second layer of color to deepen the shadows and detail. Again, lift color as necessary to preserve that highlight. The contrast between the dark shadowed areas and the light highlight areas is what creates dimension. Go back in as many times as you like to get that depth. Sometimes you will find, as I did here, the more you enhance one area, that your piece will become a little unbalanced and you'll need to go back into another area and enrichen it. The vibrancy I achieved in the leaves kind of drowned out the flowers, so I went back in just like I did the first time and added another layer of each color there. I will tell you that this loose, messy feel has taken me ages to be okay with. I've wanted it, but I am so type A and apparently uptight that I could not just let it be. My watercolor always had that perfectly blended look, but I admired this look and wanted it. I just couldn't get there. I'm not entirely sure what clicked one day, but I like it. I find the less fussing, the better to get this undone look. Oh, and don't overlook this tiny bud right here. Whoops. One more perk to Bristol paper, and some watercolor papers too, is that once the paper is dry, you can dampen an area where, say, you colored outside the lines maybe, and pick up that color. Just re-wet it a bit and blot dry with a paper towel. Again, don't scrub. Scrubbing can pill Bristol paper. To create the color for the Old World Courtyard die, I again put Bristol paper to work. I dampened? No. Let's be honest. I soaked the whole paper with water. The more water, the better. Then I touched dandelion to a few areas and watched it spread. I squiggled on a bit of strawberry in random areas and then added more clean, clear water to blend those colors a smidge. I placed my finger on the paper to keep it from bowing too much, but if you're more comfortable taping down a paper around the edges, that works too. After splattering on a few water drops to push that color around, I carefully used my heat tool to speed the drying. Please be cautious of your surface. The surface I am using is not heat safe. So I kept my heat tool pretty high up so that it wouldn't warp it. After the paper was dry, I ran it through my mink machine on the highest heat setting to iron the paper flat. A laminator would work just as well. Then place the die, cut side down, on the paper and pass it through your favorite die cutting machine. Because the negative pieces are way too pretty to toss in the garbage, I've used a large removable Avery label to catch all of them and keep them in order. I'll save these little beauties for another project. Ooh, I could even paint up that other flower I embossed at the beginning of the video and do another card with the reverse background. Now if I can just find the time. I felt that the background needed a bit more than just basic white, so I took a Hero Art snow folded card and inked up the edges with a stencil brush and Hero Art soft pool shadow ink. Using brushes to apply ink is a really forgiving way to achieve a soft blended look. I'm not even sure I could create a streak if I tried. Now that we've completed all of our individual pieces, it's time for assembly. I'm squeezing liquid glue onto the corner of a scratch paper and we'll be using an ancient triangle makeup applicator to dab the glue on to the back of the die cut. I've already tucked the fussy cut flowers into place and I'm adding foam dots to the back of the flowers to lift what will be their right side. For now, I'm leaving their release paper in place. Lightly cover all areas of the Old World Courtyard die and the remaining area of the flowers. Hold the piece securely so that it doesn't shift and get glue places we don't want it. If that does happen, an adhesive eraser can usually save it. Then I'm going to flip the piece over and wiggle it into place. Once everything is where I like it, I gently lift the edge of the flowers and remove the release paper from the foam dots. Using tweezers may help to get into tight spaces, though I didn't need to do that today. Heat emboss You Are Appreciated from the Kindness Collection stamp set and a few foam dots and tuck into place. I will be personalizing the inside of my card for Mother's Day, but any time is a good time to tell someone they're appreciated. You can find the links to the products I've used over on the Hero Arts blog, and I'll have that post linked up for you in the description box on YouTube. Thank you so much for spending your time with myself, Jeanette Cosson, and Hero Arts today. Happy crafting!